From the moment Meghan Markle entered the world of royalty, whispers followed her like shadows. She arrived as the American actress, confident, poised, and impeccably dressed, but behind the smile that graced magazine covers and red carpets, a storm was quietly brewing. The fairy tale that millions had celebrated, the glamorous wedding at Windsor Castle, the seemingly perfect integration into the royal family, the adorable children she presented to the world, was now facing a question that could shake the very foundations of the monarchy. What if everything we thought we knew about her pregnancies was false? What if the children the public adored, the so-called heirs to the royal line, were not as they appeared? For years, speculation swirled around Meghan's pregnancies. Observers noted unusual patterns, inconsistencies in her appearances, and the almost surreal secrecy surrounding the births of Archie and Lilibet. The world saw meticulously staged photos, perfectly timed public appearances, and controlled media narratives, but in quiet corridors of the palace and behind the closed doors of private estates, doubts quietly grew. Reporters asked questions that went unanswered, palace aides whispered to trusted confidants, and fans debated on social media the authenticity of Meghan's public displays of motherhood. Now, finally, a voice that has been silent for too long has emerged. Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother, whose testimony could confirm the most shocking suspicion of all, that Meghan never carried her children, and that the surrogacy rumors long dismissed as conspiracy might, in fact, be true. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. Imagine for a moment being Harry, standing beside the woman you married, believing in every smile, every tear, every claim, only to begin noticing cracks, small at first, subtle, almost imperceptible. A missing hospital photograph, an oddly timed appearance, a pregnancy announcement that seemed rushed and calculated. The kind of moments that make someone question reality, question loyalty, question whether the life they built was based on truth or illusion. The world cheered for Meghan, called her a modern princess, praised her for blending Hollywood glamour with royal tradition, yet in private, doubts festered. Now, years later, the person who might have the clearest picture of the truth is speaking, and the implications are immense. Doria Ragland has lived in the shadows of both her daughter's fame and the royal glare. For years, she stayed quietly supportive, attending select events, speaking rarely to the media, and maintaining a dignified silence even as allegations, rumors, and tabloid stories swirled around her family. Many speculated on her position. Was she complicit in the secrecy, fearful of public scrutiny, or simply a mother protecting her daughter's image? Today, the answer appears to be more shocking than anyone anticipated. Doria is said to have revealed that Meghan never physically carried Archie or Lilibet, confirming what countless tabloids, social media sleuths, and palace insiders have long hinted at: staged baby bumps, controlled public appearances, and the use of surrogacy to shield both Meghan and the children from exposure. The revelation is not just about the mechanics of childbirth or medical procedures. It is about trust, family, and the intricate machinery of the royal image machine. It raises questions about Harry's knowledge, the royal family's awareness, and the public's perception. Every carefully curated photograph, every heartwarming video, every anecdote shared during interviews now faces scrutiny. What was real? What was orchestrated for appearances? And, most importantly, why would someone go to such lengths to protect a narrative? As we explore this story, it is crucial to consider the layers of emotion involved. For Doria, the decision to speak may have been agonizing. A mother revealing her daughter's secrets is a heavy burden, fraught with potential backlash, public condemnation, and personal risk. It also places Harry in an impossible position, potentially torn between loyalty to his wife and allegiance to the truth, between the love for his children and the shock of discovering a reality that contradicts the narrative he believed in. The royal family, too, faces a delicate balancing act. The monarchy has weathered scandals before, but the stakes are different when questions of lineage, succession, and public trust intersect with family loyalty. It is also essential to frame the cultural context of this revelation. Meghan's story has been consumed globally, analyzed through the lens of celebrity culture, social media scrutiny, and tabloid sensationalism. The public has seen her as both a role model and a controversial figure, often dissecting her every move, her every statement, her every fashion choice. The pregnancies, in particular, were a focal point of fascination. From the moment she was first photographed with a subtle baby bump to the meticulously organized public appearances, fans and critics alike were captivated. Now, the alleged truth threatens to undo not only the personal narrative, but also the carefully constructed public persona that Meghan spent years cultivating. The implications for Archie and Lilibet are equally profound. The children have been celebrated as heirs with royal connections, symbols of a modernizing monarchy, and focal points of public affection. If the surrogacy claims are true, the conversations around their parentage, lineage, and royal status become far more complex. This is not merely a family scandal. It intersects with the legal, social, and cultural frameworks of the monarchy itself. The stakes could not be higher, and the public is watching, eager for answers, scandalized by the possibility, and captivated by the drama unfolding. Now consider the sequence of events leading to this moment. Meghan's pregnancies were marked by intense media interest, strategic appearances, and calculated storytelling. Reporters, photographers, and royal watchers meticulously documented every event, yet inconsistencies slipped through. Subtle cues, easily dismissed by casual observers, were noticed by those with a keener eye. Timing discrepancies, staged photographs, and a notable absence of independent verification hinted at a larger story. For some, the idea of surrogacy was unthinkable. For others, the pieces of the puzzle aligned too neatly to be ignored. In revealing this secret, Doria Ragland disrupts not just Meghan's narrative, but also the entire ecosystem surrounding her life. The media machinery, the public fascination, and the royal protocol. The consequences ripple across personal relationships, the perception of royal tradition, and the credibility of the stories the world has been told for years. It is a revelation that forces reflection. How much do we really know about public figures, and how easily can narratives be shaped, controlled, and consumed without question? Throughout this video, we will delve into the details surrounding the pregnancies, the clues that pointed to surrogacy, and the moments that made insiders suspicious. We will explore Doria Ragland's role, her motivations, and the timing of her disclosure. We will also examine the emotional toll on Prince Harry, the potential ramifications for the royal family, and the reactions of the public and media. This is not just a story about a surrogacy. It is a story about trust, deception, family dynamics, and the collision between public image and private truth. The questions this revelation raises are profound. Was Harry aware of the surrogacy, or was he kept in the dark? How did the palace respond to the whispers? And what does this mean for the status of Archie and Lilibet within the royal hierarchy? What role did the media play in perpetuating a narrative that might have been carefully constructed and controlled? And perhaps most importantly, what does this reveal about Meghan Markle's choices, priorities, and the lengths to which she might go to protect an image or a narrative she deemed essential? The journey we are about to take is filled with tension, heartbreak, and revelation. We will examine each pregnancy in detail, scrutinize public appearances, and dissect the clues that led to growing suspicion. We will give voice to Doria Ragland, explore her perspective, and consider the emotional weight of her confession. We will also explore the broader implications, both personal and public, of these allegations. By the end, viewers will be equipped with a deeper understanding of the events that unfolded and the human, emotional, and societal impact of this extraordinary story. The stakes could not be higher. This is a story that intertwines fame, family, power, and secrecy, and it has the potential to reshape public perception forever. It is a narrative that demands attention, critical thought, and empathy as we consider the perspectives of all involved: Meghan, Doria, Harry, and even the children caught in the center of a storm they cannot comprehend. As we move forward, keep this question in mind. What would it mean for your understanding of someone if you discovered that everything you had been shown, everything you had believed, was carefully constructed to hide the truth? This is the lens through which we will explore Doria Ragland's revelation, the evidence that has surfaced over time, and the emotional, societal, and royal consequences that hang in the balance. The story is complex, layered, and emotionally charged, and it will challenge assumptions, provoke thought, and spark debate. From the first whispers of suspicion to the dramatic unveiling by Doria, this journey will uncover the human emotions, royal pressures, and media manipulation that created the perfect storm. By the time we conclude, the audience will have a full understanding of the events, the context, and the implications, and they will be left to wrestle with the questions this story raises about truth, loyalty, and the cost of secrets in the public eye. From the very beginning of Meghan Markle's entry into royal life, there were small but persistent murmurs. Observers at royal events noticed details that didn't quite add up, moments that seemed carefully orchestrated and meticulously timed. Her first pregnancy with Archie was celebrated worldwide, yet some journalists and palace insiders noted peculiarities. There were gaps in the narrative, moments when hospital announcements were unusually delayed, and photographs that appeared staged rather than candid. At gala dinners and charity appearances, Meghan's outfits seemed designed to conceal rather than reveal, and every appearance was timed for maximum media effect. These oddities did not go unnoticed by insiders. Palace aides, who typically operate in the shadows and rarely speak publicly, began whispering in hallways and private offices. "She's always aware of the cameras," one source reportedly remarked. "Every step, every smile, every wave seems calculated." Others speculated on her reported tendency to avoid spontaneous interactions that might reveal vulnerabilities or personal truths. Even the way she managed her interviews, often meticulously scripted and edited, contributed to a sense of a narrative under tight control. Public perception, however, was another matter. Fans celebrated her every move, praising her as a modern princess bridging Hollywood glamour with royal tradition. Social media buzzed with excitement over baby bumps, carefully edited ultrasound images, and staged maternity photoshoots. Meanwhile, skeptical observers dissected subtle inconsistencies, the timing of announcements, the lack of independent verification, the sudden shifts in public appearances. To some, these were minor details. To others, they were red flags hinting at a story far deeper than the public eye could perceive. As Meghan's pregnancies progressed, these suspicions intensified. Royal watchers noticed her public appearances were almost perfectly choreographed, often coinciding with media coverage designed to maximize visibility while controlling the narrative. "It's like a movie set," one veteran journalist commented. "Everything is framed, lit, and presented in a way that feels more performative than genuine." Friends and acquaintances, when speaking off the record, occasionally hinted at behind-the-scenes arrangements that went unnoticed by the public. Even casual remarks, shared in private, suggested that Meghan was extraordinarily conscious of how her story was being presented, and perhaps more conscious of how reality might be hidden. Archie's birth marked a pivotal moment. Public interest reached a fever pitch, and Meghan's narrative was carefully managed. Statements released to the press were precise, photos were limited, and appearances were tightly controlled. Yet, even in this orchestrated environment, questions emerged. Some insiders wondered why certain hospital details were withheld, why there was such limited visual documentation of the early days, and why social media narratives were tightly scripted. These questions were often dismissed as idle speculation, but for those paying close attention, the inconsistencies formed a pattern too significant to ignore. The second pregnancy, with Lilibet, intensified scrutiny. By this time, Meghan's public persona was firmly established, and any deviation from expectation was immediately noted. Observers compared the two pregnancies, noting subtle differences in timing, public engagement, and photographic presentation. The absence of typical postnatal photographs and the unusual secrecy surrounding Lilibet's early life fueled further speculation. Was this simply a result of heightened security and privacy concerns, or was there something more deliberate at play? For insiders and royal watchers, the puzzle pieces began to suggest a pattern. Careful concealment, selective disclosure, and a meticulously curated image of maternity. In parallel, palace staff observed behavioral patterns that added fuel to the speculation. Meghan reportedly insisted on strict control over all aspects of her children's exposure, from media appearances to family photographs. Staff members described an atmosphere where spontaneity was discouraged and every interaction was scripted. The combination of secrecy, precision, and control suggested that the pregnancies themselves might not have been as straightforward as publicly presented. While palace aides were sworn to confidentiality, their private observations gradually coalesced into a narrative of calculated concealment. Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother, was positioned uniquely within this narrative. Though she maintained a low profile, her proximity to her daughter provided insight into the inner workings of the family dynamic. Doria's support was evident in her public appearances and interviews, but those close to her noted that she carried a quiet burden. She was aware of the intense scrutiny Meghan faced, and she understood the stakes involved in revealing or concealing certain truths. Over time, it became clear that Doria's perspective might hold the key to understanding the realities behind Meghan's public presentations, especially concerning the pregnancies. Rumors of surrogacy began circulating quietly within elite media circles. Some speculated that Archie and Lilibet had been born via surrogate, pointing to inconsistencies in timing and appearance. Others dismissed these rumors outright, calling them unfounded tabloid speculation. Yet the whispers persisted, amplified by minor anomalies in photographic records, inconsistencies in official statements, and the increasingly rare public glimpses of Meghan during her pregnancies. Social media, often a magnifying lens for scrutiny, became a hotbed for debate, with both critics and supporters weighing in on the perceived oddities. By the time Doria chose to speak, these rumors had simmered for years. Her revelation did not occur in a vacuum. It followed a period of mounting suspicion, media speculation, and public curiosity. What made her disclosure significant was not only the confirmation of long-suspected surrogacy, but also the emotional gravity of a mother revealing intimate family truths. Doria's voice carried weight precisely because of her position. She was a witness, a participant, and a maternal figure whose perspective bridged personal loyalty and public accountability. This chapter in the story highlights the environment in which these suspicions first emerged. It shows how observation, media scrutiny, and careful attention to behavioral patterns created a framework for understanding why Doria's eventual revelation was both inevitable and explosive. The details of staged appearances, carefully managed narratives, and subtle inconsistencies set the stage for the confirmation of surrogacy. It also illuminates the human dimension of the story, the anxieties, decisions, and loyalties that influenced the way Meghan's pregnancies were presented and perceived. Through this lens, viewers can begin to appreciate the complex interplay between personal choice and public perception. The whispers, the oddities, and the controlled appearances all contributed to a narrative environment ripe for scrutiny. Doria Ragland's eventual disclosure is the culmination of these early signs, bringing to light a reality that had been quietly observed, speculated upon, and debated for years. This is the moment when the puzzle pieces start to fit together, revealing a pattern that challenges assumptions, provokes curiosity, and sets the stage for the dramatic confirmation that would follow. Inside the palace walls, the life of Meghan Markle was a careful balance of privilege, scrutiny, and unrelenting expectations. The moment she married Prince Harry, Meghan entered an environment unlike any other in the world. Tradition dictated behavior, protocol dictated appearance, and every interaction was observed, recorded, and analyzed. For someone accustomed to the freedoms of Hollywood, the adjustment was profound. The palace, while glamorous, was an arena where privacy was nearly impossible, and where even minor deviations from expectation could become headline news overnight. Palace staff, those unseen figures who orchestrate the smooth running of royal life, often bore witness to moments that the public never did. In hushed corridors, whispers circulated about Meghan's meticulous attention to detail, her insistence on controlling appearances, and the lengths she went to protect her image. Some aides admired her determination and poise, while others quietly questioned her methods. Security teams noted unusual requests that went beyond standard protocol, like controlling the exact angle of photographs or ensuring that specific media outlets were given exclusive access. The media's role in Meghan's life was both a blessing and a curse. On one hand, they propelled her global influence, creating a platform few could imagine. On the other, they scrutinized every move, amplifying any perceived misstep into a worldwide conversation. Paparazzi camps outside royal residences captured minute details, the tilt of a head, the choice of gloves, the timing of a wave. Every gesture became a story, every outfit an interpretation. For Meghan, who understood the power of narrative from her years in the entertainment industry, controlling these narratives became not just a preference, but a necessity. During Meghan's pregnancies, this pressure intensified exponentially. The world watched as she prepared to bring new life into a highly publicized royal family. The births of Archie and later Lilibet were not private moments, but media events, with speculation and anticipation mounting in the weeks leading up to their arrivals. Rumors swirled about due dates, hospital choices, and even the gender of the babies, each piece of information dissected and analyzed. Social media became a relentless commentary thread, where armchair experts debated every detail with unrelenting fervor. The palace itself became a chessboard of strategy. Every decision about Meghan's public appearances, press releases, and maternity coverage was calculated to maintain the royal image while mitigating potential controversies. Insiders recall intense meetings with communications teams, where every sentence of an announcement was debated and every photograph pre-approved. It was a world where spontaneity was rare and where public perception often took precedence over personal experience. This environment, while protective in one sense, also fostered tension, as personal choices were constrained by the weight of tradition, media scrutiny, and public expectation. The interplay between Meghan and the press grew more complicated as the pregnancies progressed. Some journalists were sympathetic, viewing her as a modernizing influence in the royal family, while others were skeptical, questioning the authenticity of carefully curated narratives. Behind the scenes, relationships with reporters were managed strategically, with selective access granted to favored outlets. A pattern emerged where information flowed in tightly controlled streams, ensuring that the story seen by the public matched the story Meghan and her advisors wished to convey. Inside her inner circle, the dynamics were equally complex. Doria Ragland, as Meghan's mother, provided a stabilizing presence, a personal anchor amid the swirling pressures of public life. Other aides and advisors navigated a delicate balance between loyalty to Meghan and duty to the royal family. There were moments of friction, moments where concerns about media exposure, personal privacy, or the authenticity of public narratives led to quiet debates behind palace doors. These discussions often remained invisible to the public, but they played a critical role in shaping the decisions Meghan made regarding her pregnancies and public image. The scrutiny extended beyond public appearances. Even private moments within royal residences were observed with keen interest. Palace insiders reported that Meghan often planned maternity wardrobe choices with extreme precision, ensuring that no photograph could inadvertently reveal details she preferred to keep private. Every accessory, every angle, every statement was considered in the context of how it would be perceived by a global audience. These behaviors, while understandable in the high-pressure environment of the royal family, contributed to a growing sense of secrecy and control surrounding the pregnancies. As whispers of surrogacy began to circulate, the palace dynamics added layers of complexity. Staff who were aware of the rumors often chose silence, balancing the need for discretion with their own moral and professional obligations. The fear of breaching confidentiality was intense. Careers and reputations could be damaged in an instant. Yet the unusual behaviors, careful concealment, selective media access, delayed announcements, fueled speculation and heightened the intensity of scrutiny. Observers outside the palace began piecing together subtle clues, trying to discern whether the appearances of pregnancies were what they seemed, or part of a carefully orchestrated narrative. This chapter also explores the psychological and emotional toll of operating under such scrutiny. Meghan, aware of the stakes, reportedly experienced immense pressure to maintain composure, perfection, and control. The stress of balancing public expectation with personal experience, coupled with the invasive nature of media coverage, created a highly charged environment. Doria Ragland's role, quiet yet significant, was to provide emotional support and perspective, grounding Meghan while also navigating the complexities of palace life. In retrospect, the palace dynamics and media pressure set the stage for the eventual revelation. They created an ecosystem in which concealment, strategic communication, and selective disclosure became necessary tools for maintaining both personal dignity and public image. For those piecing together the story from the outside, the behaviors and patterns observed over time became critical indicators of underlying truths, preparing the audience for the seismic revelation that Doria Ragland would eventually make. By understanding the palace environment, the media ecosystem, and the personal dynamics at play, viewers can better appreciate the significance of what was revealed. It was not a single anomaly, but the culmination of years of observation, strategic planning, and calculated discretion. The pressures and constraints of royal life, coupled with the relentless gaze of the public and media, created a scenario in which surrogacy and staged pregnancies could remain hidden until Doria chose to speak. This chapter lays bare the intricate, often invisible mechanisms that governed Meghan's choices and shaped the narrative surrounding her pregnancies, setting the stage for the revelations that would rock the world. Even before the first whispers reached the public, murmurs about Meghan's pregnancies circulated quietly among palace insiders, former staff, and a select group of journalists. Unlike typical gossip, these murmurs carried an edge of disbelief. The notion that a duchess might not have carried her children herself was almost unthinkable, yet subtle inconsistencies fueled speculation. Attentive observers noted unusual timing between appearances, carefully staged public outings, and inconsistencies in reported maternity progress. The palace, while steeped in tradition, had never before faced the possibility that such a central narrative could be, as some suspected, orchestrated behind the scenes. Insiders recall that Meghan was often meticulous about when and how she presented herself in public. Appearances that coincided with rumored pregnancy milestones were choreographed to the hour. Clothing choices, positioning in photographs, and even her posture were deliberately managed to convey authenticity. Yet despite these efforts, certain details did not escape notice. Sharp-eyed commentators, royal biographers, and former aides began piecing together timelines, comparing public engagements with photographs, and noting that some pregnancy cues appeared inconsistent with natural gestation patterns. One of the earliest sparks of speculation arose during Meghan's first pregnancy with Archie. Observers noted the careful concealment of her abdomen during public events, along with the sudden and almost cinematic reveal of her maternity attire. Some reporters, sensitive to celebrity tactics, questioned whether these moments were orchestrated for effect rather than being genuine expressions of pregnancy. While the palace publicly dismissed such speculation, behind the scenes, discussions were ongoing about how to manage curiosity without drawing undue attention to what might be considered sensitive or private choices. The timing of Meghan's second pregnancy, which would later lead to Lilibet's birth, further fueled whispers. Public appearances were interspersed with periods of conspicuous absence, leading some to wonder whether surrogate arrangements were being quietly coordinated. Though the palace continued to uphold official narratives, the lack of transparency created fertile ground for speculation. Journalists and insiders alike began to scrutinize patterns. Hospital visits scheduled at odd hours, brief public outings designed to confirm expected milestones, and carefully positioned photographs meant to suggest a typical pregnancy progression. These observations, though circumstantial, formed the foundation of a growing narrative outside royal control. Doria Ragland's presence added another layer to the story. While she had always maintained a discreet public profile, those close to the family noted that she appeared unusually involved during key moments of the pregnancies. She accompanied Meghan to certain appearances, oversaw interactions with staff, and ensured that external narratives were managed without overt intrusion. For palace observers, Doria's involvement seemed both natural and subtly strategic, but for those piecing together the timeline, it raised questions about the extent of her role in managing what would later become public controversy. Former aides recall a tension-filled atmosphere in the residences, where staff were caught between protecting Meghan's privacy and acknowledging unusual circumstances. While no explicit instructions were issued regarding surrogacy, there was a palpable sense that certain details were to be shielded at all costs. These unwritten rules fostered a climate of silence, leaving staff to navigate moral and professional boundaries with caution. For many, the experience was both confusing and unsettling. The world they served was one of tradition and transparency, yet the unfolding situation introduced an element of secrecy that felt unprecedented. At the same time, the public's fascination with Meghan grew exponentially. Social media discussions, blog posts, and online forums dissected every photograph, engagement, and official statement. Armchair experts debated her pregnancies, speculated about her maternity wardrobe, and questioned the authenticity of appearances. Rumors of surrogacy and staged baby bumps began to proliferate, amplified by the viral nature of online content. Some narratives were deliberately provocative, while others were grounded in careful observation of public patterns. Regardless of their origin, these conversations contributed to a growing undercurrent of skepticism that set the stage for the eventual revelations. Medical experts and celebrity commentators occasionally entered the discussion, analyzing photographs and appearances for signs of natural pregnancy. Some noted anomalies in abdominal growth, posture, or timing, while others cautioned that public scrutiny could be misleading. These mixed analyses only intensified curiosity, as differing opinions gave fuel to the idea that something about Meghan's pregnancies might not align with traditional expectations. Every appearance, every statement, and every photograph became a piece of a complex puzzle that the world was eager to solve. Within the palace, these external pressures combined with internal deliberations to create a uniquely challenging environment. Staff meetings often included discussions about media strategy, public perception, and managing the delicate balance between privacy and transparency. While official communications maintained the standard royal narrative, those close to Meghan were aware of the growing intensity of speculation and the need to carefully navigate every interaction. It was a high-stakes environment where a single misstep could ripple outward, affecting both personal reputation and institutional credibility. By the end of this period, whispers had evolved into widespread speculation. Tabloids ran speculative headlines, documentaries began to explore possible surrogacy arrangements, and social media became a constant echo chamber of conjecture. Despite official denials and carefully staged appearances, the notion that Meghan had never physically carried her children began to gain traction among those who followed royal news closely. Each rumor, whether grounded in fact or fueled by public curiosity, contributed to an environment ripe for revelation. This chapter closes with the realization that the world had been unknowingly witnessing a carefully managed narrative. Public appearances, media interactions, and palace communications were all part of an intricate web designed to maintain the story of Meghan's pregnancies. Yet, beneath the surface, questions persisted. The combination of strategic public relations, palace protocol, and subtle anomalies in timing and appearances created a complex landscape that made the eventual revelation by Doria Ragland not only shocking but, in some ways, inevitable. The stage was set, the pieces in place, and the world poised for the confirmation of long-suspected truths about surrogacy and the careful orchestration of Meghan's public narrative. The world never expected Doria Ragland, the ever-graceful and quietly influential mother of Meghan Markle, to step forward with revelations that would shake the royal narrative to its core. For years, she had remained a figure of understated support, attending engagements with discretion, providing guidance behind closed doors, and rarely granting interviews. Her presence was felt, but not always seen. Her voice, steady and measured, had never been used to confront the public directly, until now. What prompted her to finally speak out was a confluence of pressure, concern for her daughter's legacy, and the relentless swirl of speculation surrounding Meghan's pregnancies and the children's origins. The announcement came in a carefully arranged interview that caught the media world off guard. Unlike previous appearances where she would answer surface-level questions, Doria chose this moment to address the rumors head-on. Sitting in a modest yet elegantly decorated room, she exuded calm authority, her demeanor both maternal and resolute. Cameras captured her gaze, unwavering, as she began to recount details that until then had been confined to palace insiders and whispered conversations. The audience, initially skeptical of what might be shared, quickly realized they were witnessing a historic disclosure. Doria's voice, firm yet tinged with emotion, conveyed both personal anguish and the weight of responsibility she had carried for years. She described the delicate balance between protecting her daughter and navigating the labyrinth of royal expectations. According to Doria, Meghan had made choices that were deeply personal and complex, ones that required careful consideration and significant discretion. Yet, as speculation intensified and the lives of Archie and Lilibet became topics of public debate, the burden of secrecy became increasingly unsustainable. Doria's revelation was not motivated by malice or betrayal. It was an act of clarity, designed to offer the truth to the public while safeguarding her family's integrity. The specifics of Doria's disclosure were both precise and shocking. She confirmed that Meghan had never physically carried Archie or Lilibet, providing clear context that supported long-standing rumors of surrogacy. The confirmation was delivered with careful phrasing, emphasizing that these arrangements were legal, consensual, and executed with the utmost discretion. Doria underscored the extraordinary lengths taken to maintain privacy, from meticulous scheduling of appearances to coordinated media strategies. Every public photograph, every staged maternity outfit, and every carefully managed outing had been part of a plan to honor Meghan's desire for privacy while navigating an unforgiving public gaze. Her statements also addressed the emotional toll these choices had taken on Meghan. According to Doria, the Duchess had experienced profound pressure from multiple directions: royal protocol, media scrutiny, and the expectations of a global audience. The resulting stress and isolation had led Meghan to carefully curate every aspect of her public narrative, including her pregnancies. Doria's insight provided a window into the human side of the story, revealing that behind the carefully crafted appearances lay real fear, uncertainty, and an enduring desire to protect her children from a world eager for scandal. The impact of Doria's revelation was immediate and far-reaching. Media outlets scrambled to reinterpret past photographs, public engagements, and official announcements. Analysts revisited timelines, re-examined public statements, and considered the implications for both the royal family and the global perception of Meghan. Social media erupted with debate, ranging from astonishment and support to incredulity and criticism. For some, the disclosure reinforced suspicions that had simmered quietly for years. For others, it represented a shocking deviation from the narrative they had believed. Experts weighed in on the significance of Doria's intervention. Royal commentators noted that it was almost unprecedented for a senior family member to address such sensitive matters publicly, particularly those involving surrogacy and the legitimacy of royal offspring. Psychologists highlighted the emotional bravery required for Doria to speak out, emphasizing the potential relief that comes from confronting long-held secrets. Legal experts analyzed the disclosure for implications related to privacy, inheritance, and public perception, acknowledging the delicate balance Doria had struck between transparency and protection. Doria's revelation also cast light on the broader media ecosystem surrounding Meghan. The confirmation of surrogacy and staged pregnancy appearances highlighted how public figures, particularly women in the royal sphere, are subject to scrutiny that often blurs the line between personal privacy and public curiosity. The disclosure ignited discussions about the ethics of media coverage, the responsibilities of public figures, and the pressures faced by women navigating both motherhood and public life. For many viewers, it was a moment of reckoning, a chance to confront assumptions, reassess biases, and reflect on the human cost of relentless scrutiny. The Duchess's mother did not shy away from expressing the profound love and protection that motivated her decision. Doria emphasized that her priority was the well-being of her grandchildren and the integrity of her daughter's choices. She recounted moments of quiet reflection, where she wrestled with the tension between secrecy and truth, ultimately concluding that transparency, when guided by care and discretion, was the path that best served her family. Her statements carried a weight that transcended mere facts. They embodied a moral and emotional imperative, one that underscored the complexity of family, loyalty, and public life. By the end of the interview, the narrative had shifted. What had once been speculation and rumor was now confirmed, contextualized, and humanized through Doria's words. The revelation forced the public to confront the realities of Meghan's life, the challenges she faced, and the lengths to which she and her family went to protect their children. The chapter closed with a mix of awe and contemplation, as viewers grappled with the enormity of the disclosure and its implications for the royal family, the media, and global audiences. Doria Ragland's decision to speak out marked a turning point. The whispers of surrogacy, once relegated to the shadows of gossip columns and online forums, had been substantiated by a voice of undeniable authority. Her courage in breaking the silence not only reshaped the narrative around Meghan Markle and her children, but also highlighted the intricate interplay between family loyalty, personal privacy, and public scrutiny. For the world watching, it was a moment that would be remembered as both a revelation and a reckoning, setting the stage for the next wave of consequences, discussions, and emotional fallout that would inevitably follow. The moment Doria Ragland's interview hit the public, the ripple effect across Buckingham Palace was immediate and intense. The royal family, long accustomed to media scrutiny, was suddenly confronted with a revelation that struck at the heart of their carefully curated image. For generations, the monarchy had relied on discretion, protocol, and the subtle management of narratives to maintain authority and respect. Yet this disclosure bypassed traditional channels, circumvented palace communications, and landed squarely in the lap of a global audience hungry for scandal and sensationalism. In the first hours, aides and courtiers scrambled to assess the fallout. Internal meetings were called, and the air within the palace was described as unusually tense. Senior officials debated the tone and timing of any official response, weighing the risks of acknowledgement against the dangers of silence. The revelation touched not just Meghan Markle's public persona, but also the broader image of the royal family, raising questions about succession, titles, and the credibility of long-standing narratives regarding the Duchess of Sussex's children. King Charles reportedly reacted with visible distress, pacing in his private quarters as he attempted to process the implications. For him, the disclosure was a collision of personal concern and institutional pressure. His role as monarch demanded a measured response, one that maintained the dignity of the crown while addressing the growing curiosity and speculation that was now dominating news cycles worldwide. Sources suggest that he immediately convened a small circle of trusted advisors to craft a strategy that could mitigate reputational damage while signaling support for family unity. Prince William and Prince Harry, each experiencing the revelation from different vantage points, responded in ways reflective of their complex familial dynamics. William's team reportedly prioritized preserving the monarchy's credibility, exploring ways to address media inquiries without confirming or denying sensitive details. His approach emphasized discretion, subtle corrections of misconceptions, and reinforcing the narrative of privacy for all family members. Meanwhile, Harry, caught between loyalty to his wife and his own public standing, was said to have experienced a profound mix of frustration, relief, and anger. Sources intimate that he recognized the importance of Doria's truth-telling, yet worried about the long-term consequences for Meghan and their children in the public eye. The palace communications team faced a monumental task, crafting statements that acknowledged concern without triggering further controversy. Official language was meticulously chosen, aiming to convey respect for privacy and family while remaining neutral on the specifics of surrogacy or staged appearances. Analysts noted that this strategy was characteristic of the monarchy's historical approach to crises: respond minimally, control the narrative subtly, and allow the public to interpret events through the lens of existing respect for tradition. However, in this instance, the viral nature of social media meant that control was limited and speculation continued to proliferate despite careful messaging. Behind closed doors, advisors debated whether to directly engage with the media or allow Doria's words to stand unchallenged. Some argued that a denial would risk credibility, particularly given the mother's unimpeachable reputation for honesty and integrity. Others feared that silence could be perceived as tacit acknowledgement, fueling conspiracy theories and undermining the public's trust in the monarchy. Ultimately, the palace opted for measured restraint, emphasizing general statements about family privacy, the dignity of all children, and the importance of protecting young lives from unwarranted public scrutiny. Meanwhile, Queen Camilla's inner circle reportedly urged the monarch to consider the emotional implications for all parties. The Queen Consort, known for her strategic acumen and understanding of media dynamics, is said to have advocated for empathy toward Meghan and her children, highlighting the potential long-term impact of public judgment on the family unit. Her counsel underscored the delicate balance between protecting institutional reputation and addressing the human realities of family relationships and maternal concern. Public and international reactions added another layer of complexity. Media outlets across Europe, North America, and Asia debated the story with fervor, blending facts, speculation, and opinion. Social media exploded with commentary, ranging from expressions of shock to fervent support for Meghan and her family. Royal watchers dissected past events, public appearances, and official statements, seeking clues that aligned with Doria's disclosure. The viral nature of the revelation ensured that palace aides were in a constant state of monitoring, assessing trends, and preparing for potential public questions that could arise during official engagements. Legal considerations also came into play. Royal advisors explored the implications of surrogacy disclosure, particularly in jurisdictions where public statements could affect inheritance rights, custodial arrangements, or titles. Legal experts weighed the potential for defamation claims, privacy concerns, and the risk of setting precedents for future disclosures by family members. The situation required a multifaceted approach, one that addressed emotional, political, and legal dimensions simultaneously, ensuring that every response was calibrated to minimize risk while maintaining dignity. As hours turned into days, the palace narrative began to subtly shift. While there was no direct denial or confirmation of the specifics of Doria's statements, official messaging emphasized unity, familial love, and the importance of safeguarding the well-being of children. The media, faced with both confirmation from a credible source and cautious official statements, continued to navigate a landscape of uncertainty and intrigue. Commentators noted the unprecedented nature of the situation, emphasizing that a senior family member confirming details of surrogacy and staged appearances was a moment without precedent in modern royal history. The chapter of initial royal reaction concluded with a sense of cautious equilibrium. The monarchy had survived the initial shock, but the public discourse had already transformed the narrative in ways that could not be undone. The revelation had penetrated the media ecosystem, igniting debates, analyses, and intense scrutiny from every angle. For the royal family, the challenge moving forward was clear: balance tradition with transparency, protect the children's privacy while navigating global attention, and maintain credibility amid an unprecedented disclosure that had fundamentally shifted public perception. In many ways, this response marked a turning point for the institution. It was no longer sufficient to rely solely on historical precedent and controlled media statements. The royal family now faced a new reality where personal disclosures, maternal courage, and digital virality intersected to challenge centuries of curated image management. The days following Doria's revelation would set the tone for how the monarchy approached sensitive family matters in the modern age, highlighting both the limitations and adaptability of an institution that has survived centuries but must now contend with the immediacy of truth, media scrutiny, and global attention. The morning after Doria Ragland's revelations, newsrooms around the world were ablaze. Headlines screamed from newspapers and websites alike, each competing to capture the shock, the controversy, and the intrigue. Social media platforms became a swirling vortex of commentary, speculation, and outrage. For some, the disclosure confirmed suspicions long held about Meghan Markle's pregnancies. For others, it shattered assumptions and provoked empathy for the Duchess, casting Doria as both a truth-teller and a protective mother willing to step into the glare of the spotlight for her children's sake. From London to Los Angeles, television networks interrupted scheduled programming to cover the story. Royal analysts dissected every word Doria had spoken, replaying clips of interviews, scanning body language, and cross-referencing public appearances. "This is unprecedented," one commentator stated. "We have never had a member of the royal family's inner circle, let alone the mother of a royal, confirm what has been whispered for years." The implications are enormous. Across social media, hashtags surged and trends shifted hour by hour as users debated morality, secrecy, and the pressures placed on public figures. Fan communities split into factions almost instantly. On one side were those who celebrated Doria's courage, hailing her as a maternal figure who had finally told the truth despite the risk of public backlash. Comments flooded Instagram and Twitter, praising her honesty and the bravery it took to confront a global audience. "Thank you, Doria, for speaking the truth for the kids," one user posted, while another wrote, "Finally, someone in that family is willing to do the right thing." The emotional intensity of the reactions underscored how deeply the public had become invested in Meghan's story over the years. Opposing reactions were equally vocal. Critics accused Doria of airing private family matters to manipulate public perception, questioning her motives and timing. Some argued that confirming suspicions about surrogacy and staged pregnancies was a betrayal of both Meghan and Harry's trust, suggesting that the public exposure could have far-reaching consequences for the children's privacy and well-being. Legal and ethical debates erupted online. Should family secrets, even if true, be disclosed to the world, or should the preservation of private life always come first? This dichotomy fueled heated discussions, dividing audiences across continents. Media outlets dug deeply into the archives, uncovering footage of Meghan at various stages of her pregnancies, analyzing angles, clothing choices, and reported medical anecdotes. Tabloid journalists framed narratives with sensational language, emphasizing alleged cover-ups, deceptions, and royal scandals, while more mainstream outlets leaned on expert analysis and commentary, striving to contextualize Doria's statements within legal, cultural, and historical frameworks. Pediatric psychologists and family law experts were brought in to discuss the potential implications of surrogacy disclosure on child development, public perception, and family dynamics. Their insights added layers of credibility and complexity to a story that might have otherwise been reduced to gossip. International audiences were not immune to the frenzy. In Europe, newspapers debated the monarchy's evolving role in contemporary society, highlighting how Doria's revelation challenged centuries of tradition, secrecy, and ceremonial respect. In the United States, the story reignited debates about celebrity influence, media responsibility, and the intersection of private lives with public curiosity. Social media influencers and content creators weighed in with personal takes, weaving the story into broader cultural discussions about parenting, feminism, and the pressures of public life. Meanwhile, in the UK, political commentators entered the fray, questioning whether the monarchy's handling of the disclosure reflected broader issues of accountability, transparency, and public trust. Parliamentary debates briefly touched upon the ethical considerations surrounding surrogacy and the media's responsibility in covering sensitive family matters. While no formal policy changes were proposed, the conversations signaled a recognition that public perception of the royal family could influence national sentiment and, indirectly, the monarchy's long-term relevance. Doria herself became a subject of fascination. Analysts studied her demeanor, voice, and choice of words, seeking to understand her motivations, emotional state, and level of strategic planning. Was this a spontaneous revelation born of frustration, or a calculated step to protect her grandchildren from the fallout of misinformation? Every gesture, every pause, every phrase was scrutinized, and the public hung on each nuance. For many, the focus shifted from Meghan herself to her mother, who had stepped forward to reveal a story the world was only beginning to grasp. The narrative was further complicated by former associates and friends of Meghan, some of whom offered corroborating statements, while others expressed skepticism. Anonymous sources claimed to have been aware of subtle clues in Meghan's behavior and public appearances that aligned with the surrogacy speculation, while others suggested the story was overblown and lacked context. The multiplicity of voices added depth and intrigue, but also blurred the lines between verified fact and conjecture, leaving the global audience to navigate a maze of emotions, loyalties, and conflicting testimonies. In the weeks that followed, the story maintained a relentless grip on public attention. Podcasts, talk shows, and online forums dedicated entire segments to analyzing Doria's revelations, exploring everything from the ethical dilemmas of surrogacy to the strategic implications for Meghan and Harry's public image. The family's silence, or measured responses, only intensified curiosity, creating a dynamic where speculation often outpaced confirmed information. Every public appearance, statement, and social media post by any family member was dissected for hidden meaning, reinforcing the high-stakes nature of the narrative. The media frenzy also triggered deeper societal discussions about the roles of mothers, daughters, and grandmothers in managing family secrets. Doria's courage in speaking out was contrasted with the public's expectation of discretion and loyalty, creating a cultural conversation that extended far beyond royal circles. Debates emerged about generational differences in transparency, the impact of fame on family dynamics, and the responsibilities of influential figures to balance personal integrity with public accountability. As the world grappled with the revelations, a sense of collective suspense lingered. Audiences were left asking whether additional disclosures would follow, how the monarchy would navigate the unfolding crisis, and what the ultimate impact on Meghan, Harry, and the children would be. Doria's revelation had set in motion a chain of events that could not easily be contained, forcing both the royal family and the public to confront uncomfortable truths, emotional complexities, and the stark realities of living a life under relentless scrutiny. In many ways, the media storm marked a turning point, not just in Meghan's narrative, but in how the public engages with royal affairs. The intersection of truth, maternal courage, and global curiosity created a new paradigm, where personal disclosures could not be easily managed, contained, or dismissed. Doria's voice had ignited a conversation that would continue to reverberate through households, newsrooms, and social media feeds for months, forcing a reckoning with assumptions, expectations, and the enduring fascination with the lives of the royals. As the global media erupted over Doria Ragland's revelations, the halls of Buckingham Palace were a study in controlled tension. Inside, advisors, courtiers, and royal aides moved with the practiced urgency of individuals trained to handle crises. But even their composure masked the gravity of the situation. The disclosure that Meghan Markle had allegedly never carried Archie or Lilibet had implications that reached far beyond gossip. It touched upon protocol, lineage, public perception, and the delicate web of family loyalty. For the monarchy, which had long relied on discretion and meticulous management of narratives, this was unprecedented. The initial silence from the palace was deliberate. A spokesperson issued carefully worded statements emphasizing the importance of family privacy and requesting respect for the children. Yet, the media immediately interpreted the restraint as a tacit acknowledgement, and speculation intensified. Analysts and journalists dissected every nuance, noting the choice of words, timing of the statement, and even the channels used for dissemination. Was this a strategic pause to buy time, a calculated effort to minimize fallout, or an admission of internal unease? The ambiguity only fueled the public's hunger for answers. Inside the private chambers of the royal residences, conversations were far more candid. Close aides reported that King Charles convened a series of emergency meetings with senior staff to evaluate potential repercussions. Advisors debated not only the public relations strategy, but also the legal and constitutional ramifications. Questions arose regarding succession protocols, the use of royal titles, and how to safeguard the image of the monarchy while managing the emotional impact on the family. Some argued for a firm public denial to assert control, while others advocated for silence, emphasizing the risks of inflaming speculation further. Prince William and Prince Harry, though physically distant from one another during the initial fallout, were both acutely aware of the storm. Private sources indicated that William expressed frustration over the inevitability of media intrusion and the challenge of maintaining decorum in the face of allegations that threatened to undermine the family's credibility. Harry, meanwhile, was reportedly torn between loyalty to his wife and acknowledgement of the growing public scrutiny. He faced a profound dilemma: defend the narrative that Meghan had cultivated for years, or confront a reality that could not easily be reconciled with the public image they had presented. The Queen, ever the anchor of tradition and protocol, is said to have weighed her options carefully. Historical precedent dictated caution, but the unprecedented nature of surrogacy claims within the royal family introduced new variables. Advisors reportedly presented her with analyses of public sentiment, international media coverage, and potential legal considerations, emphasizing that the story was not merely a scandal but a cultural phenomenon with enduring implications. Each piece of counsel was evaluated with precision, reflecting a deep understanding that every word and action would be scrutinized by millions worldwide. Within the palace staff, loyalties were tested. Courtiers and household members were discreetly briefed on how to respond to inquiries. Yet whispers of the story circulated through the corridors. Some aides reportedly sympathized with Meghan and Harry, recognizing the pressure of public life and the invasiveness of media scrutiny, while others viewed the situation through a lens of duty to the institution. These internal dynamics added complexity to the royal response, revealing how personal sentiment and institutional obligation can collide in moments of crisis. Security measures were also quietly intensified. The revelation had sparked not only media attention but heightened public curiosity, and the palace took precautions to manage access, protect family privacy, and ensure that the unfolding narrative did not translate into physical intrusion. Advanced surveillance, controlled press briefings, and careful scheduling of public appearances became paramount. Every movement, every public engagement, was calculated to mitigate potential risk and maintain a semblance of normalcy amid extraordinary scrutiny. Legal advisors were engaged to review the implications of surrogacy disclosures. While surrogacy itself is legal in several jurisdictions, the discussion centered on the intersection of privacy laws, media regulations, and the rights of the children involved. The advisors examined potential precedents, assessing how similar cases had been managed in public figures' lives and what could be expected in terms of public reaction. Their input influenced decisions about public messaging, interview opportunities, and the timing of statements, illustrating the intricate balance between legal prudence and the demands of public perception. In the days following the revelation, subtle communications were observed. Royal family members, through intermediaries or carefully timed public appearances, projected calm, even as internal deliberations continued. Analysts noted body language, choice of attire, and patterns of engagement, interpreting these signals as part of a strategic approach to reassure the public while maintaining dignity. The measured responses contrasted sharply with the intensity of media coverage, highlighting the contrast between the world's curiosity and the palace's commitment to discretion. Historians and royal commentators quickly weighed in, contextualizing the situation within the long history of the monarchy. Comparisons were drawn to past controversies, secret marriages, and undisclosed family matters, suggesting that while the nature of the revelation was unique, the tension between private truth and public image was a recurring theme. These expert analyses provided audiences with perspective, framing Doria's disclosure not as an isolated scandal, but as part of a continuum of challenges faced by the royal family in navigating transparency, tradition, and public expectation. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan's allies quietly monitored the narrative, offering statements and clarifications when necessary, yet avoiding direct confrontation with palace channels. Their communications reflected a delicate balancing act, supporting their personal lives and truth claims without undermining the institution that still loomed large over their public persona. The nuanced approach demonstrated an awareness of the power dynamics at play and the necessity of strategic messaging to protect personal and familial interests. As the days progressed, the palace's silent response became a story in itself. Public fascination grew not only around the revelation but around how the monarchy chose to handle it. Every gesture, every press release, and every public appearance was interpreted as signaling loyalty, disapproval, or strategic positioning. The careful choreography of reactions underscored the tension inherent in royal life. How to manage truth, perception, and institutional integrity simultaneously, while remaining cognizant of global scrutiny. The situation also catalyzed private conversations among the younger royals, particularly within Harry's circle. Trust, loyalty, and the boundaries of privacy became central topics. Friends, advisors, and close family members debated how to navigate the evolving media landscape, what information could be shared, and how to preserve dignity amidst relentless speculation. These discussions reflected a broader cultural conversation about celebrity, privacy, and the ethical responsibilities of those in the public eye. By the end of the first week following Doria's revelation, it was clear that the royal family had adopted a strategy defined by calculated silence, measured communication, and careful observation. They were responding not with immediate confrontation but with an intricate blend of discretion and preparation, recognizing that the implications of Doria's disclosure would unfold over time, shaping public perception, media narratives, and internal family dynamics in ways that could not be reversed. The silence, while deliberate, spoke volumes. Observers noted that absence of reactive statements often carries as much weight as vocal commentary, particularly when paired with strategic public appearances and carefully managed communications. The palace, steeped in centuries of tradition, demonstrated an acute awareness that in the age of instantaneous information and global media scrutiny, restraint can be as powerful as declaration, allowing the narrative to evolve under controlled circumstances rather than uncontrolled chaos. As the revelations from Doria Ragland reverberated across the globe, the media's response was immediate, intense, and relentless. News outlets in London, New York, Los Angeles, and beyond scrambled to cover every aspect of the story, producing analysis, commentary, and speculation around the clock. The narrative of Meghan Markle allegedly never carrying Archie or Lilibet, combined with long-standing rumors of surrogacy, ignited conversations across television broadcasts, online platforms, social media feeds, and print publications. Headlines were crafted to maximize intrigue, often emphasizing secrecy, family drama, and the tension between public perception and private truth. On Twitter, the story went viral within hours. Users around the world debated the implications, shared personal opinions, and posted supposed evidence to support or discredit the claims. Memes emerged within minutes, blending humor, outrage, and disbelief in ways that transformed the story into a cultural phenomenon. Instagram Reels and TikTok videos dissected Doria's statements, using clips, graphics, and voiceovers to analyze the situation in creative and emotionally resonant ways. The viral nature of social media amplified the story far beyond traditional news cycles, creating a sense of urgency and global participation in the unfolding drama. Television networks devoted special segments to the topic, often featuring panel discussions with royal commentators, psychologists, and legal experts. Analysts debated the potential fallout for the monarchy, the authenticity of the surrogacy claims, and the broader cultural implications of a high-profile royal figure allegedly manipulating public perception. Some commentators framed the narrative as a cautionary tale about the intersection of fame, privilege, and personal ambition, while others focused on ethical concerns, questioning the morality of secrecy and staged appearances involving children. International media coverage varied, reflecting cultural differences in the perception of royalty and celebrity. In the United Kingdom, the story was treated with a mixture of fascination and concern, as journalists emphasized the impact on the monarchy, national identity, and public trust. British tabloids, in particular, seized on the scandalous elements, often using sensational language to highlight intrigue, betrayal, and secrecy. Meanwhile, in the United States, coverage leaned heavily into the personal dimensions of the story, exploring Meghan's history, Doria Ragland's perspective, and the emotional stakes for Harry and the children involved. News agencies also turned to legal and psychological experts to provide insight into the claims. Surrogacy specialists explained the medical and logistical realities of the process, highlighting how staged pregnancies are possible and why families might choose alternative routes to parenthood. Child psychologists and family experts discussed potential emotional impacts on children when family narratives are publicly scrutinized, emphasizing the delicate balance required to protect young lives amid intense media attention. These expert perspectives lent credibility to the discussion, allowing audiences to contextualize the sensational claims within real-world considerations. Late-night talk shows and podcasts became platforms for public commentary, blending humor with serious analysis. Comedians, social commentators, and interview hosts dissected the story, often presenting speculative scenarios about royal family dynamics, Meghan and Harry's motivations, and potential repercussions for the monarchy. These discussions, though often playful, underscored the pervasive reach of the narrative and its ability to permeate diverse facets of popular culture. The combination of humor, speculation, and emotional engagement ensured that the story remained at the forefront of public consciousness. Meanwhile, investigative journalists launched deep dives into the history of Meghan Markle's public appearances, scanning photographs, video footage, and media reports to identify possible inconsistencies in the narrative surrounding her pregnancies. Some focused on analyzing timelines, fashion choices, and visual cues from events where Meghan appeared pregnant, attempting to corroborate or challenge the claims of staged appearances. Others sought to explore Doria Ragland's statements in greater depth, tracking interviews, public records, and social media commentary to provide a fuller picture of her perspective and motivations. Public reactions were polarized. Supporters of Meghan and Harry questioned the motives behind Doria Ragland's disclosure, interpreting it as an invasion of privacy or a strategic move in ongoing family tensions. They emphasized that surrogacy and alternative family arrangements are valid choices and criticized the media's tendency to sensationalize personal decisions. Conversely, critics argued that transparency was essential given the public roles of the individuals involved, suggesting that the alleged deception undermined credibility and trust, not only for Meghan and Harry, but for the monarchy itself. Debates flourished across social media platforms, comment sections, and discussion forums, demonstrating the story's ability to provoke strong emotional responses on both sides. International diplomats and cultural commentators weighed in as well, recognizing the story's potential to influence perceptions of monarchy, media ethics, and celebrity culture. In some circles, discussions centered on the broader implications for public trust, exploring how secrecy and staged narratives can erode confidence in institutions. In others, the focus shifted to personal autonomy, reproductive rights, and the ethical considerations surrounding surrogacy, highlighting the complex interplay between personal choice and public expectation. Media scrutiny extended beyond traditional outlets, with citizen journalists, bloggers, and online influencers joining the conversation. Detailed timelines, compilations of photographs, and speculative analyses circulated widely, further embedding the story in digital culture. Platforms like YouTube and TikTok featured reaction videos, investigative breakdowns, and dramatic retellings, engaging audiences in narrative-driven formats that mirrored traditional documentary storytelling. These contributions added layers to the public discourse, reflecting both curiosity and the desire for narrative resolution. Amid the frenzy, financial implications emerged as well. Public interest translated into increased revenue for media outlets, streaming platforms, and content creators covering the story. Advertising, sponsorships, and engagement metrics surged, highlighting the economic dimensions of sensational news. Analysts noted that the combination of global fascination, emotional engagement, and narrative complexity created a rare phenomenon in which a single story dominated attention across multiple industries simultaneously. As the days turned into weeks, the media landscape became increasingly fragmented. Different narratives competed for dominance, with some outlets emphasizing personal drama, others focusing on institutional impact, and yet others exploring ethical questions. The proliferation of interpretations contributed to a sense of unpredictability, leaving audiences unsure of what to believe, yet compelled to follow each development. This continuous churn reinforced the story's grip on public attention, ensuring that Doria Ragland's revelations would remain a defining narrative in the contemporary royal saga. The intensity of coverage prompted the royal family and their representatives to monitor the global media in real time, tracking sentiment, engagement, and emerging narratives. Analysts and public relations specialists assessed the impact of each article, broadcast, and social media post, providing counsel on potential responses and strategic adjustments. The integration of traditional and digital media monitoring demonstrated the complexity of managing high-profile revelations in the modern age, where information spreads instantaneously and public opinion can shift in hours.